Dan scaled his first company past £10 million. But the way it was built meant control sat in the wrong places. Hiring decisions compounded over time. And when it came to changing direction, he couldn't move the business the way he needed to. So the second time, he didn't just start again. He rebuilt the foundation differently from day one. So listen to the end of this podcast and you'll walk away knowing where founders unknowingly give up control in their first business, how early hiring decisions quietly create long-term risk, what actually changes in how you build the second time, how to spot if you're repeating the same mistakes again. Again, this is the mentalbusiness.com podcast, and we're here to show you probably stuff that you can save 10 years of your life just by listening to this podcast. So if there's somebody you know that you can share this with, that you think this will save 10 years of their life, that could be an entrepreneur or in business, then make sure you share it. So let's get stuck in then. Dan Haywood is on the show today. He is multiple business owner. He scaled his first business, learned a lot of lessons, and he doesn't plan on doing it again. And now he's gone into being a serial entrepreneur as well and starting new technology businesses as well. So let's learn about Dan's journey and get some good lessons from this podcast. Welcome to the show, Dan. How are you going?
Yeah, good. Thank you. It's it's a pleasure to be here.
Good stuff, mate. Well, give us a bit of a background. I mean, we've just positioned it there about these different businesses that you've got. What were they? Give us a bit about your journey and who you are and where you come from.
No, thank you. It's a big crescendo start, wasn't it? So, I think, it's important from my perspective to set the scene, I suppose, before we go into this. So, I went to university, finished in 2011. I did an undergraduate degree in sports science, kind of finished that, and it was like, I'm not really sure what to do. I'd always had a passion for business, but never had a formal qualification. I didn't do a GCSE in business. I didn't do an A-level in business. My first formal qualification in business was a postgraduate master's, MBA, accredited master's degree in business. So I did that. When I finished that, I actually started my first business, which is really, really, really cool. Actually, I was doing some work sort of post-university, part-time work for a company that sold science workshops into primary schools. And I'll never forget the two founders, Glenn and Yvette. They took me in and I was doing the shows, and they had some things going on in their life that they wanted to change direction. And I didn't even know what it was then, but I did my first MBO. We went and took the business off them, me and two of the chaps.
Amazing.
And we did that. Yeah, it was quite cool actually. We did that for a while into primary schools, and then I decided to get a proper job in inverted commas. So I was a regional sales manager, graduate position, sort of no experience required, regional sales manager for a health and safety products company. They were based up in Livingston in Scotland. And as you can probably tell from accent, I live near Birmingham in Dudley. So that job quickly taught me I needed to be in the mix with people and in around people. Remote working necessarily wasn't really a thing for me. Bouncing ideas. I'm quite a energetic person in that sense. So I did that for a year. It didn't really work out. And then I played a lot of cricket, and I spoke to a guy at my cricket club who did relatively well for himself. And I was like, what do you do for a living? Just out of curiosity, he had a decent car, he's decent lifestyle. And he's like, I'm in recruitment. So I thought, I tell you what, that sounds like a good idea. So I just put my CV online. I was approached by a recruitment company at the time. I didn't have a clue who they were, but they were a company called S3 PLC. They were a FTSE 250 business, one of the biggest recruitment companies in the world. And I went into that recruitment company sort of very green and very sort of fresh. I did a market to start with around retail and transformation, which was okay. It wasn't that niche, but it was okay. Did a couple of placements. At this business, there was a chap who went on to become my business partner at Infinite Talent. It was a guy called James Gamble, and he was doing a really niche market around warehouse management systems. And, sort of three to 6 months in, he said, what, Dan, do you want to come and do this market with me? Do you want to niche down and work with me? And from there, I've honestly never looked back, and I won the Rookie of the Year award in that business for the most sort of revenue generated along, because I was new in the company. James was the top biller. My business partner in the future was a top biller. He was, making multi-million pounds a year for this business in this niche WMS market that you take that offline, you go to the cricket club, you talk to your mates about WMS or warehouse management system. They haven't got a clue what you're on about. They have no concept. So I did that for about 2.5 years, and then had a bit of news which was unexpected. I was going to be a dad. So that kind of spun my world a little bit, because agency recruitment is fully invested. It's fully, not a 9 to 5. You've got to be on it. It's long hours. And I was a little bit worried about I could make that commitment. And at the same time, but purely by absolute luck, one of my customers approached me to go and work for them directly, sort of internally, doing a few bits for them. So I went to work for a company called REPL Group, who were founded by 3 people, Mike, Chris, and Thomas, who I'm still in touch with today, actually. And I worked there for 3 years directly with the COO at the time, she was an excellent mentor to me. She became the CEO, Kerrish Johnson. And I did a lot of recruitment for them, a lot of resource management. It was a scaling business, and it was really fun. I got to go to India a couple of times. I got to go to America a couple of times. And bearing in mind, I'm 27 years old, and it was pretty cool. And at the time, after the 3 years at the time, James and I, the guy who I met at the first job in recruitment, we always kept in touch. We were good pals, and we was like, we should probably try and do something on our own at some point. And we were talking away. And we got to a situation where we had 2 kind of opportunities on the table. One was the owner of REPL could sort of set us up and help us get on that journey. And the other was from a guy that James knew very well, who had founded a recruitment company himself. So we took the recruitment guy's opportunity because we thought, that's relative. So we founded a business called Infinite Talent, which is still going today under the Talent International Group that was bought out from subsequent acquisitions, etc. It's still there now. And yeah, we did that. We did that for 5 years, and 18 months, 2 years into that, COVID hit us.
Oh wow! Okay, so this is coming into 2020. How old were you then, by the way? What was because we've got a lot of young entrepreneurs, especially the ones that are live on TikTok right now as well. They like to understand the age sort of areas really, and when it was
probably 30, 31, something like that.
Wow. So all that happened before 30, right?
Yeah. So we founded Infinite. COVID hit, and we were just like, wow, oh shit, okay, this is, I vividly remember, what's his name, Boris Johnson being on telly, talking about how, not the end of the world, but it felt very, very sinister and very, very theatrical and very movie-like. And I remember phoning James after that and going, Jesus, what, if I need to sell my car, do I need to sell one of my watches, or do I sell my house, do I remortgage my house? What do I, in case we need to fund the business? And, we had to make some tough decisions around furlough and redundancy.
So
but
was James a bit of a mentor to you then, Dan? Was he?
Yeah. We were very yin and yang. We complemented each other very well. And James has done podcasts, and if he's a good one to get on if you want to get him on in future. To be fair, he talks very well. So we helped each other a lot. We complemented each other really well. And yeah, I learned a lot from James. His work ethic is second to none. I've never seen. It's where I get my work ethic from, because in the early days I didn't want to be seen to not work as hard as James. That was always my driver. But yeah, COVID hit, and it was like, oh crap, what do we do now? So we put a couple of people on furlough. We had to make someone redundant, who is now a business owner himself, and I still talk to a guy called Dave quite a bit. We made him redundant, and from that redundancy, he went on to make his own business.
Tough time, right? But it's these impacts that make a difference, not just in your lives, but in the employees' lives, that go on to do great stuff. So that was probably a good thing for you as well, knowing that you've done a good job in mentoring them. Maybe,
yeah. I think it's, at the time, it was obviously hard, and I've since reconnected with Dave, who started his own business, and he looks back at it philosophically, going, you know what, if that hadn't have happened, that redundancy, I probably wouldn't have started his business called Switch. He wouldn't have probably started that. So, but then, out of absolutely nowhere, our biggest customer pre-COVID suddenly won the NHS PPE contract to distribute the PPE. So none of this dodgy stuff you read in the newspapers, they were physically taking it to hospitals and GP surgeries and stuff. And they phoned me and James, and they're like, yeah, we're opening, and we need like pop-ups, distribution centres effectively to distribute all this, and we need, X amount of people. How can you help us? And we were conscious of 2 things. We were conscious of there was a need to do the right thing, but we were also conscious we had a business to run and people to pay. So we did a deal which at the time was internally criticised a little bit. We were doing recruitment placements at an internal charge. So Clipper Logistics had a cost of recruitment internally, which was between 500 quid and £5,000, depending on the level of hire they were looking to do. Yeah. And we said, look, we'll just match that for you. And we ended up hiring about 200 people in the space of 3 to 4 months for Clipper across their across their
Wow.
business to get this PPE, out and distributed and all that stuff. And it kept our business alive. And we didn't make lots of money in that period, but we made enough to sustain the staff that we had. And then, as I say, post COVID, the world did wake up because no one had spent anything for 2 years, and we just picked up on that journey. And that's where we grew from. In COVID, we had 3 of us left: myself, James, and Penny. And then we got it up to a peak of 17 before James and I left the business. So that happened. We tried an MBO, which we'll come on to shortly, I'm sure, which didn't go through. I left again to then work sort of in industry for one of my clients, a consultancy business. I was their sales director and chief revenue officer.
Okay.
And then again, that was going through a bit of transition, and they've just recently been acquired. And then here we are today. I was like, right, what am I going to do now? And I've had loads of ideas going through my head for a number of years, and now felt the right time to do them.
So you went from employee to business owner, entrepreneur, to the COVID stuff that happened, back to employee, and now you're into the entrepreneur journey again, a second time round, right?
Correct.
So I think the main question that I've got, and we covered it in the intro, was what are the lessons then you take from the first time that you're now bringing into the second time round? Because I think that's extremely valuable for a lot of viewers. And by the way, if you are on live right now on LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, drop any questions that you might have into the chat for Dan, because this is valuable stuff that could save people a lot of time. This is why we do the Mental Business podcast here, is to save people time rather than all this test and measure stuff. Let's learn.
Yeah.
What have you done differently doing this second business?
The honest answer is take more risk, because the first time around, we had an opportunity where we hardly took any risk, apart from quitting a job, right, to go to build a business which could have failed, and then we go back to a job. We weren't the deal that we got. We weren't required to put any of our own cash in or anything like that. We were building, in theory, for someone else with a plan to own that company after a set period of time, and hence where we got to the MBO stage of trying to buy. Honestly, it felt like we were trying to buy ourselves back. We were buying ourselves off the parent. Now, there's a number of reasons why that didn't happen, but I think from a starting a business perspective, you've got, the more risk you take, the more control you get, right? It's like a sliding scale. So if you're willing to put all the cash up front for 100% stake or a 90% stake or whatever, and you're taking all the risk, you'll get a deal that reflects that. I think if you're starting a business using someone else's money or someone else's time or someone else's facilities and resources, I think we were quite naive at the time to go into that scenario thinking, oh yeah, that's fine, we'll do all this, and then over time we'll transition to be fully owners of this business without any pain or any, sort of suffering or any, emotional stress that we went through. But yeah, so for me, it's just understanding what risk are you taking? What are you doing? If you're sitting there now on this podcast and you want to start a business, and I hear the term side hustle quite a lot these days, and it'd be good to get your opinion on side hustles actually. But me and James, when we started Infinite, we never wanted a side hustle. We wanted a business, and we wanted to, I always think if you've got time to focus on a side hustle, you should be working harder at the thing you're doing.
So
Potentially.
would your views be then that have all your eggs in one basket and put all your energy into one thing as opposed to multiple different things?
It's a tricky. I don't want to contradict myself actually, because I've now got eggs in multiple baskets. However, I think at the time when you're doing it the first time round, I think it's the fairest thing you can do for yourself to give it the best opportunity to succeed. I think, we discussed offline, about how percentage of businesses that fail. And a lot of them, I think, is because either they don't have the duration to try and succeed, or you're either a slave to a monthly paycheck, or there's time constraints, or there's something that means you can't fully invest your time and energy into what you're doing. And again, when we started Infinite, we started it with little risk to us. And
Infinite, is the first or the second business?
This was the first one.
The first one. So Infinite was the first one. And the second one, what's the name of the second one? Sorry.
Is We Fill Space now, the one that we do. Yeah, nice. Yeah. WeFillSpace.com. So the first one, it was all, again, we were young, right? We were young. We didn't really know how any of this works. Yeah, I had a master's in business, but,
You could say
realistically,
it. You could say
you,
it.
you learn a hell of a lot more in the real world than you do on a course, right? It's good foundations, and I still use some of those foundations today in my daily life. But I think I learned more in that first year of doing Infinite than I did, you know, on that master's course, which is fine, and that's probably how it should be. But yeah, for me, the biggest takeaway is understanding the deal that you're getting into. It's got to be the right deal for you.
So there's a lot of business owners that I meet, and everyone's always coming to me. I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn. Lewis, we just want a bit of help with this, and I'm all about giving back as well. Of just doing the right thing. Do the right thing, my people. And they will say to me that they in their mind they're doing the right thing and justifying it of why they're doing it. And in my mind, I'm going, that's stupid shit that you're doing right there. But it's not me. I haven't learned the right in their life yet to go and just turn around. But there's a part of me as well. It's like a bit of like walking down the beach. Always got a bit of a metaphor here. Walking down the beach, and if you was a medical doctor and you saw that a bunch of young lads, rowdy guys, having a few beers, and the one of them on their leg had that you knew was a cancer, but they thought it was okay. Would you stop and say something to them if you realize that that's a problem that they don't see as a problem? But it's a bit like the, put the toad in the water and you drop it in the boiling water and jump straight out. But if you leave it in the water and turn the water heat up, it will boil alive. So when you look back, what felt right at the time, but was like structurally wrong?
It was the ownership model. We founded a business without owning the business, if that makes sense. Because from an ownership perspective, there was always that event in the future that was on the table of this MBO / transfer of shares. The one thing I suppose we were naive to that happened in reality was the parent company and the guy we did the initial deal with went through subsequent acquisitions while Infinite was still in the group, if that makes sense. So all of a sudden, the deal you've done with the one guy now is not the guy pulling the strings. So it's, the landscape has totally changed, and you've got a different set of veteran elders that you need to talk to and work with, and all that sort of stuff. So it's maybe for us again naivety of getting that ratified, shareholders agreements, all these documents now that cost a fortune, unfortunately, but are actually probably worth their weight in gold going forward. And I know, again, we've done it now with this business. My former business partner, James, has set up a new recruitment company, and, I was doing a little bit of work with him in the outset of that company, and a shareholders agreement was a great document to have, and he's pretty glad he's got that now. So it's, for me, it's I always say to try and do it. If I was looking back, try and do it correctly, and don't be afraid to say no. These people are bringing opportunities, but they're investors. They want you to do what they want to do, right? So you've just got to try and get a deal that suits you as well.
Perspective as well, Dan. It's like we want it to be win-win all round, and we know that throughout the journey of this sort of shit that does come up in the world as well. Look, the shareholder document isn't just a legal document that sounds like it's a bit of a pain in the arse at the start, but you need it, and we know we should have it, and it could cost you a couple of £1,000 or dollars, depending on where you are in the world. But the conversations that happen during a shareholder document is the relevant stuff of the conversations you should be having as business owners and partners in the first place. So it brings up the right stuff to be talking about.
It's the business equivalent of shaking someone's hand in the pub, and you've got a deal. Because you've chatted through, you shook someone's hand, and that's a deal. In the business world, that is a shareholders agreement. You've discussed it. The shareholders agreement is just a ratification of your conversations.
Because these things do come up, mate. Exactly. Now, it should also happen between employees of having some sort of employee document, stakeholders. Everyone's a stakeholder in the company, and employees are. But okay, what do they get? They just get a thing from a HR company to sign here and things. What we're actually, the shareholder document is a high-level document of the rules of the game. Of this is how we play as partners with each other, and the rules of the game should also be within the company as well for the employees.
And employees is a nice one to segue into, actually, because obviously James and I went for just James and I. James, it was myself, James, and a lady called Penny, who were in COVID. They were the three left after obviously COVID happened, etc., etc. And And then when we sort of went for Infinite 2.0 after COVID, when it was a second iteration of the same business,
Yeah.
employees became again a thing that were new to us. We ended up with 17 of them. So it was, how do we keep it all fair? And we wanted to be the company where people just like to work for us. It was a good place to work. And I don't mean a nice place where you had a slide or a beanbag. It was, we're going to change people's lives. We want people who don't have mortgages to go and get mortgages. People that aren't married to go and get married, and really help them. And if you look back through all of our employees, a lot of them had life-changing things positively happen to them while they were working for us. And we think we created a great culture. And, our motto was we live it and we breathe it. And we genuinely did. We genuinely did. We were just better than our competition.
So when it comes to the people side then, because a lot of business owners that are starting now, they know that eventually, and regardless of all this stuff about AI and automation, and you use Claude and Claude Code, who was talking about that earlier on.
Yeah.
Great, but it's kind of a bit delusional for people as well, that you've still got to go into this real business where you will hire people if you plan on scaling to have the business that you're actually setting out to. So what hiring decisions seem logical early on, but created problems later?
I think from early on, it's identifying the right people. And I know that sounds like a flippant statement, but we had a philosophy of we hired on attitude, a bit of experience and attitude, not necessarily the right finalized sort of polished skill set. We could teach and coach that, educate that. It was more like the attitude. You just know when you speak to someone whether they were a cultural fit for our business. Do they get it, is what we used to say. They get it. It was the phrase that we used, and which was fine to an extent. But we quickly depleted our known people pool, if that makes sense. So it was like, and it's ironic, right? Because we're a recruitment company, so we should be bloody good at this. But we depleted we know Tim's good, so we'll try and steal Tim. We knew Victoria was good, we'll steal Victoria. We knew Charlie was good, so we'll steal Charlie.
It's a bit like putting a lot of football coaches on a football field to play actual football together.
Yeah,
let's see how that goes.
Yeah, exactly. So the bit for us came when the bit we had mixed success on is, I suppose, hiring outside of our known zone. We got some of those right, we got some of those wrong. It's probably a 50-50, and that for me is the lesson learned, right? Get better at hiring. We fill space now, right? We've got one employee outside the founders, and he's my mate who I met in a pub 7 years ago. I know his attitude, I know him as a person, etc., etc. So that's an easy hire. Anyone can do that. Anyone can hire their mate. It's how do you then scale that when you have to hire the unknown? So I think that for me is the lesson learned, right? Trying to get better at hiring, which sounds ironic considering I owned a recruitment.
We had a question come up in the chat, Dan. When you hire friends, how do you have tough conversations with them?
Well, because I'm autistic, that's very easy for me. So I'm black and white. I'm a binary person. His name's Ben. He's sat out there outside the pod that we're in now recording this, and I can tell him some harsh truths about business, but I can still go for a beer with him after. Again, this is because I'm a little bit simple, I suppose, in my head. It is, I can categorize and black and white these things very easily and segment them and compartmentalize them. I hired my friend, another friend of mine called Jake, at another business I owned previously, and I had to let Jake go because we weren't doing what we were doing, getting to the targets we need to get to, and then just a change of direction. He actually then went to work for a friend of mine as well. But it was, unfortunately, it's a decision that by compartmentalizing it allows me to do those things. Now, I'm making that sound easy for me, and I imagine on the other end, I'm still good friends with Jake. We still play darts together and talk together, and all that good stuff. So it hasn't really affected our friendship in that sense. But for me, that is not. It's not easy. It's not nice. I'm not saying it's nice. It's just something I don't find difficult. Maybe because I do see things very black and whitely.
So it's a bit of a given and superpower for you, isn't it? I know you mentioned the autism element side of it, but that has got a good strength of yours here, is to be able to have those black and white conversations, which is needed in business.
It is. It is very negative, though. It can be very negative, and I'm now a little bit more aware of this is I do come across sometimes as a bit of a prick because, and I don't mean to be, it's just I'm very blunt and very direct because it's, if you ask me a question, I'll give you, I cannot not give you an honest answer. So it's, if someone goes, oh, am I doing okay? I'm like, well, not really. You need to do better. In a fluffy world, that would be wrapped up in some, personal improvement plan or something like that. That's the bit I struggle with.
British are very good at the shit sandwiches, aren't they? So
yeah,
we've got some bad news to deliver to you. I'm going to give you all the good stuff first. Then there's a bit of bad news, and here's the nice fluffy end to it to make it all better again. And the message that you're actually giving out is like, "Oh, I did a great job. There's a bit of a problem, but I did a great job." It's like, no, mate. Give them the direct conversation.
Well, how do you learn from that, right? How do you move on to the next thing from that conversation if you don't know, if you don't understand what the improvement bit was that needs to be done, And I think employing friends is one thing. I think at Infinite we didn't employ many friends. We employed a lot of, I suppose, people we knew, if that makes sense. In this current business, We Fill Space, Ben is my friend. He was my friend before he was anything to do with the business. So, watch his space, whether I have to fire him or not. I mean, he's doing a brilliant job. So,
he'll be on edge, yeah.
yeah. He's a good kid, and he's got the right attitude. He wants to better himself. He wants to, his background, he was building warehouses, and now he's selling a technology platform to fill warehouses. So it's a nice little story and journey there. But he just wants to get off the tools. He wants a career. He wants something he can, go and change his financial outlook. Instead of having a fixed day rate for the rest of his life on site, he wants a uncapped commission plan where he can, the more he puts in, the more he gets out. And as I say, fair play to him, because before he started for me, he was commuting 2 hours a day to a site. He was building a warehouse, and in those 2 hours, he previously set up a LinkedIn account, and he was just doing cold outreach on the commute. Obviously, he wasn't driving, but it just showed me instantly. I was like, this kid just gets it. He's willing to put the effort in. So yeah.
You get a lot of hearts, by the way, on TikTok right now. So I'm assuming that this guy might be listening and looking for a pay rise.
Well, I tell you what, it's funny actually because he's. I don't have TikTok personally. I mean, We Fill Space has joined TikTok yesterday. I was getting loads of verification codes I was working with the marketing team on. But Ben, the guy, he's on TikTok, and it's like, it's going to be ironic now because I always tell him, stop wasting your time on TikTok. Scroll on LinkedIn instead. It's more likely to make you money. But then in the generation we're in now...
Let's put it in the group. If I was listening on LinkedIn and I was listening on TikTok right now, TikTok or LinkedIn for business, cast your votes. TikTok.
Yeah, but it's the point, right? Because I've got, 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. If I was, I don't know, starting again now, I'd try and get 1 million on TikTok because that would definitely make me more money than 20,000 on LinkedIn. Like it
depends on the industry and the game, mate. It really does. Like, it's but anyway, so back onto the employee side then. This is really interesting because a lot of entrepreneurs that are starting now, there's only so far that automation will get you before you've got to employ these people. And the friends versus, not friends in business. A lot of the companies that I own have friends of the owners in there.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that mean that the company is better or worse, or is it? To be fair, we've had to have tough conversations and lose friends that we, some of the people there have had friends since they was at school.
Yeah.
But we've done it in a way that it's got to be a win-win and done from the heart, really. If you think that the wrong employee is losing in your company, it's your responsibility as owner to make sure that they are achieving their wins in life as well. If they're feeling shit turning up to work and they're not doing a good job and it's not working for a win for the company, help them find another job somewhere else.
This is exactly what I did.
That's what we do. And it's happened with your mates from the previous company, by the look of it.
That's exactly what I did with Jake. He was unemployed for about 12 hours because he left me and then started with my mate Tim, a couple of literally a day later, like on the Monday. So, I think that's true. I think if you're big, if you're comfortable enough to take the easy decision of hiring your mate, you've got to then be big enough to make the uncomfortable decision to maybe have that conversation with them, and that's the trade-off, right? But I suppose it's how you frame it. When I framed it with Jake and how I framed it with Ben, I was like, look, we don't know. This is a startup. This could work. It might not work. You're buying into me as a person. I can't guarantee anything, right? But If you want to come on that journey, let's do it. And I think it's about being honest with them and not selling your mates the dream, because that's
Exactly.
very easy to do, right? So you just need to sit them down and make sure they're comfortable with the decision they're about to make. Don't talk them out of it, obviously, but it's not far off that, you know.
Mate, positioning is everything, right? So whether they're friends before they come to the business, or another angle of looking at this is that you become good friends with the people you employ as
Yeah,
well. If I look
yeah,
at the people that I've put in as directors and they're managing directors of the companies that I own, I get on good and have a good laugh with them. In fact, it's fun. It's part of our culture is that we've got to have fun doing business. So what's the point? You know,
yep,
but then we also need to be able to have the tough conversations sometimes. So I position it like this. I like, look, I'm gonna have to put my business owner hat on right now and take my friend hat off. Or
yeah, yeah, yeah,
same with coaching clients as well. If we've got coaching clients, a lot of the coaching clients become good friends. You know, but then when you see that back to that example of walking down the beach and there's a cancer on their leg,
mm,
I have to take. Look, I'm taking the mate hat off now, and I'm going to put the coaching hat on and say, you need to sort this shit out, otherwise you ain't gonna have a business in 3 months,
yeah.
or you're
No, I
going to
agree.
lose one of your best employees, or you're going to lose a lot of margins. You know, it's tough
I agree.
conversations is hard, mate, and I think this is a valuable lesson for the listeners.
No, I agree, and I think it's it's something you've got to appreciate. It's the not the baggage. That's a very negative term. It's the consequence of employing a friend.
Mm,
You know,
mm.
you got to be,
There's
as
a
I say,
lot of
you've got to
positives
understand
as
that.
well, right? So a lot of the friends that do stay in the business as well, they have become directors now
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
from employees and previously working in just so happens warehousing.
Okay.
They've gone
Yeah,
from
yeah,
like
yeah,
forklift truck drivers to good employees, high performance employees, managers, and directors. And we want to see that win. I mean, as a friend as well, you want to see your mates win too. So why not
yeah,
have
yeah.
a business that can allow the vehicle to let your friends win?
It's the only form of nepotism I tolerate.
Go on, tell us more about
Is
that.
it's so for me, because of my background, it's I think nepotism in its in its original form is really infuriating for me, that people get basically gifted an opportunity to do something based on basically your hereditary, right, your family tree effectively.
Interesting.
and that's
Yeah.
and that's not just because I haven't had it, it's just I don't understand it, you know. Whereas actually you'd argue, and it was actually argued to me a few weeks ago, that because I was going off on a rant about nepotism at its finest, as I like to quote it, right? And
Mm.
they were like, well, yeah, but you basically deploy a form of nepotism, keep hiring your mates. I was like, actually, you make a good point. It's just I don't see it like that. I see it like they're not my, I've got a daughter. If she wanted to come work for me, she'd have to work for me based on what she could bring to the table. All I see in my mates is actually they've got the right attitude, the right attributes. They just haven't been given the opportunity. And you could give the same opportunity to 10 different people and it'd turn out 10 different ways. So it's not about, it's all about taking the opportunity you're given, not the person that gives the opportunity. But yeah, sorry, we digress around nepotism. It's one of my little pet peeves.
I think also, they're mates for a reason, and that's because they
Yeah,
share some core values. And when you're first starting out in business, things like core values and culture statements and all these, what seemed like bullshit at the time, you're bothered about, can you pay the bills? Is there revenue
yeah,
coming in? Are we profitable? Are we compliant? Massive one in
yeah,
today's world is compliance. There's a lot of other things
yeah,
that are on your mind. Yeah, we've been there.
yeah,
There's a lot of other things that are on your mind that isn't about the things that where the business might be in a year or 5 years' time. But think about core values. The person, when you're a solo business owner, your core values are with you. But as you
yeah,
scale, you've got to make sure that people aren't bringing their values in to your business's values. It's a bit like bringing Jamie Oliver into McDonald's, isn't he? We know he's like
yeah,
one of the best chefs and could make the best burger, and his core values is to deliver a 5-star service. So would McDonald's be. Doesn't mean that having loads of Jamie Olivers is going to fit your restaurant when
Well, you
you've got to
lose
get
sight of the
you've got to get 1,000 burgers out in an hour, not one.
you lose sight of the goal. You lose sight of the mission. That's the that is the I suppose that's the fear of why you do hire your mates, because your mates are like-minded, and you hire that, which is fine. But the bit you lose on that is you then surround yourself with people that keep telling you you're right. And actually,
Mm.
when you hire outside people, you get a better, more diverse understanding of the world. And some of the people. Again, some of the business I've founded recently, in this new round of ventures, one of them is called Nexus, and a guy who worked with me at Infinite is now working at Nexus. Next week, there's another guy called Liam who's joining that business. And when Liam joined Infinite, where he worked for me before, Liam's a working class kid from Coventry. He's got a different background to me. He's a mixed race guy. He's got a different. Me and him aren't the same person, but from a background perspective, we are identical. We're both working class lads. But what Liam's taught me and what I've taught Liam about understanding how we can work together and how we both see the world ever so slightly differently is something that I think that we gain by not just hiring the people or your mates in your circle. And that's the trade-off. It's very easy to just surround yourself with people that'll tell you, yep, Dan, you're right again. It's like, that's cool to a point.
But this is what we said earlier on before the podcast, we need to be pushing ourselves as entrepreneurs, not just getting into a circle where it's your four walls and that's the business. And people say to me, oh, I've been in business 30 years. I'm like, no, mate, you've been in business 1 year times 30.
Yeah.
You've been in business 1 year 30 times. The entrepreneur journey is about pushing yourself, about learning how you have difficult customers, difficult employees. Because if you're hiring the wrong employee, and I hear this quite a lot, mate, is all these bullshit excuses of why people can't scale. I wanted to grow my business, but you just can't find great people. No, you can't find great people. You haven't learned how to recruit properly yet.
And if you went through your WhatsApp, you must have 5 mates there who are in your head great people, right?
Right.
So just bring them on the journey with you. Do you know what I mean?
Advice.
Unless you've got no mates, right? If you've got no mates, that's a true statement. But if you've got 5 mates, you at least know 5 great people, don't you?
Well, there's evidence of knowing great people as well. So you've got to recruit those great people. When you put a job ad up and it looks like some chat GPT bollocks just for some generic thing, it might get the person, but it'd be the wrong person if you haven't done it from the heart. If you haven't got your culture values in there and things of what you're looking for. I mean, we get people coming to the business and, some of the companies, I love turning up to the offices. I go to my offices like probably once a month, once a week for some of the businesses. And it's just a good laugh. It's like, they're like a bunch of mates and it's like seeing your friends there because that's the culture that we built. Why? Because the core value is be professional, do the right thing, have fun.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, if you look at it from a culture perspective and what you're trying to do, it's very easy to get lost in, as an entrepreneur, you are quite a dominant individual because you have to be very self-confident in your approach, externally at least. Internally, that might be different, right? There's imposter syndrome is a real thing.
Podcast there, yeah.
Right. But because you're so dominant in what you do, it's very easy to just let people keep agreeing with you. And it's very easy to let that happen. And I think, some of the lessons about creating a good culture is creating a culture where people can challenge you openly. Challenge you openly. Do I agree? I might not agree with you, and I might tell you a reason why I think my idea is better than yours. But being challenged is healthy. And that I think that is when you're talking about culture and being able to enjoy what you're doing. I think the next iteration of that is being able to challenge the status quo or challenge the leadership or whatever you want to do.
It is, and it needs to be in your kind of like your slide deck of this is how we. I mean, I've got a good friend who owns Specsavers, and what he has is a training center. So anybody that comes along has to go to the Specsavers training center. So even if they've been and worked for a competitor, they still have to go to the Netflix, the Specsavers training center, because it's about how they do this differently.
Yeah, sure.
And the whole week that they will be there will be about like, this is how we not just talk to customers, but how we behave with each other. So without, in lieu of that, everyone just kind of just does what they want, and they don't really know how to behave. So again, always look to the systems from the business owner. Business owner, have you put the right systems in place before you start blaming the people?
Yeah, I agree. And that's, you see it in lots of walks of life. If you're in a Starbucks and it's not as efficient or as it should be, or you're in a pub and it's not running as you would, there's a mistake. Yeah. For me, that's not the person doing its fault. For me, that's the middle manager in that situation by not either demanding the correct standards of the staff or enforcing the correct standards of staff, or training them properly. It's usually one of those two things, letting little things slide. As in warehousing, there's a term, and my business partner at We Feel Space will tell you, if you walk around a house and see some packaging or some shit on the floor, and the GM of that warehouse lets that happen, that's not the person who's dropped its fault. That's because the management aren't adhering to their own, like you say, statement or agreement they've got, because everyone signs a charter, don't they, that we're going to do X, Y, and Z. That for me is a management problem. It's not an individual's issue, because an individual will do whatever you let them get away with.
Exactly right. I mean, look at a perfect example of this is Subway. Now, if you go in Subway in the middle of London or the middle of New York or wherever in the world, you've got the same system that can be used in 1,000 people an hour versus 10 people an hour. Now, we got to a place in North Wales, and there's this lovely sandwich shop, great food, shit process, right?
Yeah.
In case they're listening. But what happens is that you go in there, and as soon as it reaches that busy hour of the day, everything just falls to shit. Okay, so they're blaming each other, and they're shouting, and the staff are stressed out, and they're running between each other and bumping each other, and the oven's not working properly, and it's just
load of flapping.
It's just chaos, right? So Subway know this, and they've come with a system of how they can possibly get 1,000 people through an hour by having a production line sort of system, right? And then you go to a Subway in the arse end of nowhere, and it's chaos as well. So what's happened there? Why is it chaos in a Subway with the right system? Like you just mentioned, it's probably a management problem. Is that they're not sticking to the system?
And when you're autistic, just personally speaking, when you're autistic, when a perfectly well-defined system fails in front of your eyes, it really hurts my head. Like physically hurts my head when I see something like you do. Like literally, it's chaos. How do you? It's like the lack of efficiency. It's just a little tidbit. My mates are always constantly taking the mick out of me. They're just like, just chill out. I was like, I can't. It's like, you make 1,000 coffees a day. How can you get it wrong? Do you know what I mean? It's a process. It's literally process. It's Henry Ford on a production line.
Right.
It's so yeah. But anyway,
no, that's the power of autism, then I guess, isn't it?
And insights into my crazy little mind.
Yeah, well, we'll remove the word autism. I mean, you want shit done right? That's you want it done right.
Yeah. But I think I think the other bit on process and system and flow, I think it's something at Infinite, and James, my former business partner, would wax lyrical on this. It's the process. Follow the process, because most people don't follow a process, so it creates shoddy outcomes. Be meticulous, attention to detail. Just be better than you can. And I know that sounds such a silly phrase, but just think about everything you're doing and go, am I just doing this to tick a box, or am I doing it to serve a purpose? Do it properly. And I think at Infinite, it's one of the reasons we were so good, because we were just better at process, and that came from our founding at this FTSE 250 recruitment business, because they were shit hot at training, and they were
success leaves clues, right? You got to.
Well, you look at recruitment business owners now across the world. A lot of them started at S3. A lot of them, it was, trace their career back. They started at one of the S3 brands, and it's because their training and their process is literally nailed on, and you never forget. It never leaves you. It's like ingrained. It's like military precision in terms of what you need to do.
Good.
So yeah, that's why I think it's so ingrained in me now, 15 years later.
So to go back to the main thing at the start, what we said about what the business owners are going to get out of listening to this, or not just business owners, business professionals. What do you refuse to repeat today from when you started before?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, if you segue that into where we are now with We Feel Space, with Nexus, with my own consulting brand that I've got as well, and, a few of the bits that we're looking at currently, it's sitting down, exploring the opportunity properly, and exploring the deal properly, and how it's structured, and how, and I know it sounds a bit corporate and boring, but it's so, when you get that in practice, it makes life a load easier. Because if you've got the right people involved, it's the right deal, so no one feels like they're being shafted, or no one feels that someone's got more of the pie than them, but they're doing more of the work. It's about just having those. They're not awkward conversations. Well, I don't personally find them awkward, but they are. People don't like talking to them sometimes. You like, having ideas and brainstorming how this business is going to be $1 billion unicorn is really fun. Talking about how you're going to pay each other, the first month you make some money is not that, it's a little bit awkward for some people. So for me this time around, it's just looking at the opportunity, taking more risk personally as well, using some of my own money and various other investments I've got to fund these, paying Ben, taking Ben on, in a zero revenue business to start with. Ben's an employee. It's just thinking it through a bit more and getting a deal that suits all the parties better. And it's very tempting to take other people's money straight away, and actually just think through what that means, because you do have to pay back at some point.
Look, I see it a lot, right? Because I've got investor on my LinkedIn, I get 10 a week, different investments. And I've now got like a system. You'll like this, by the way. It's a filtering system of, is this person actually going to be aligned to what I want? Am I aligned to them? And they are like, because investment can mean so many different things. But what does investment mean to me? And the amount of people that have come around, and we got down a pipeline of like, this is really good, it's really exciting, let's move forward. And then it'll get to the point of, well, we think this is worth £10 million, and we want to give away 10% of the shares for £1 million. So we're trying to raise 10 million, a million. So if you want to come in at 100 grand, because 100 grand's a lot of bloody money, and I'm going probably like 10 grand.
For
10
1%.
grand will get me
0.1%.
0.1%, right?
In that model.
And I'm going, this is going to need a lot of my time. I've got a heavy marketing background and sales background. People want my skills in marketing and sales to come and sit in that boardroom table with them for 0.1%. And I'm going, you've just made this up. You've just made it on Company's House, and you're just giving yourself £10 million without doing any hard work.
And you're paying for the privilege, right? Because you had to give them 10 grand to be on get the seat in the first place.
That's for 0.1%. I mean, I had to say like Tuchel Sullivan right now, but what's 0.1% when you could just, it's just been made up that this is a valuation. But a lot of people are like that. But then the real people that have gone through it as well, why not just get the right people together and then sell the shares as you go? I mean, the real way shares work is that you dilute shares as you go as the business grows. So it's more for everyone anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen it with my own eyes, with partners I've worked with companies I've worked with and partnered with. They take this seed money and they take this series money, and America's is, I think, a worse market for this than the UK presently that I've witnessed. But they take this money, and you just see the change in business practice. It's all, sunshine and rainbows for the first few months, because they've got a load of money. They're going to go and hire a load of people or do whatever they're going to do, market a load of stuff, sponsor a load of events. And then over time, you start seeing the bite come, the investor bite of, oh shit, we want some of this money back now. And oh God, hang on, your market cap isn't what we thought it is. Oh, hang on a minute. So your prices have got to go up, or you got to start shafting your customers and doing practices that actually isn't what you started your business to do. You were so customer friendly to start with, and now you're shafting your customers. And it's like, I've seen that with my own eyes, and it comes from being in someone's pocket ultimately.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of companies out there that seem to be like unicorns that I see, and they're doing really well, and they're all over LinkedIn and everything like that. And some of them can be like taking on consultants, for example, and they'll pay the consultants next to nothing, and they have to take a large percentage for the business. But because there's so many shareholders and these investors involved that are all, and from an investor perspective, they want their money back, Dan.
Of course they do. Yeah,
of course. They're going the last 3 years getting this off the ground, and I want to get paid for it.
And then they come in with no context of the market or the situation, looking at a spreadsheet usually and going, hang on, you've got 50 customers. If we up the price by 5% on each customer, then there's X. And it's like, it doesn't work like that.
No.
I've got to then go and trudge back to my customer and go, oh, you remember that price I told you? It's now £1,000 more. And that pisses people off, because it's the biggest failure of any business is when expectations are misaligned.
Love it.
And that's internally, externally, whatever. The minute there's a misaligned of expectations, 100%. People get pissed off. That is life. And I've seen too many times investors have triggered that misalignment of expectation. And that's why second time around, I'm like, look, I'm going to try and do it myself. And I'm going to, if I do take investment, the right deal and the right help percentage, is that time, is it money, is it, whatever it might be. So yeah, I think it's, I think that's the key. I think it's just making sure you understand what you're getting into.
So how did you
Second,
choose who to build with the second time then?
great question. And it's a really cool story, if you don't mind me saying.
Got for it.
So one of my first ever placements, if you go back to my first recruitment job at the FTSE 250 company, I placed two people, both WMS consultants, into a business called XPO Logistics, who still exists today.
WS just for the warehouse
Uh,
management.
warehouse management system. Yeah, there's two main ones in the world, Blue Yonder and Manhattan, and these two happen to be Blue Yonder consultants. I placed them both into their contracts 15 years ago, first time sort of independent day rate contractor type people.
Yeah.
They are now, weirdly, full circle, both my business partners in We Feel Space. And the reason being is I've kept in touch. I've talked to them. Matt Shepherd, he's the former supply chain director of Ted Baker. So he went on from being that independent consultant. His career went on that journey. Jacob, who's the other co-founder, who's our technical CTO, effectively, he's still stayed in the technical. You know, this guy's a genius. He can build wherever you want to build. But he started in WMS, and you know, me and Matt have had this idea about We Feel Space, the Airbnb of warehousing, for years and years and years. We just never had the right set of circumstances to go, we're both available, we've both got a bit of cash, we both want to do this. And obviously that's what happened back into last year. But yeah, I just chose them because I know them, I've worked with them previously. You know, we all know what each other are bringing to the table. We complement each other. You know, I'm X amount of personality, Matt's a little bit different, Jacob's different, but skill wise, we've all got a different skill set. Matt's an operator. He's, you know, been a supply chain director for a major UK retailer. Jacob is a technical genius. You know, he's a developer. He's got all the technical skills we need. And I'm a sales guy, a commercial guy, you know, and I've got a big network in the industry. And what, again, like I just said, it's about sitting down and just exploring those conversations. And he won't mind me saying this, there's a guy called Alex Jones, who I've known for years. I went to university and I went to school with him. Me and him explored this last summer, wefeelspace.com. And our approaches just weren't aligning. It doesn't mean we're not mates. It doesn't mean we fell out. It's just the approaches both of us wanted to take were different. He wanted to pay for the development. I wanted a third founder to do the development. And that first iteration didn't get off the ground because we just weren't aligned on what we were doing or how we wanted to approach the problem. Whereas second time around, because there's three of us and the third one now is the development element of the trio, we now have a better deal, if that makes sense, or more, everyone around that table is more comfortable with the deal. And I think that's the difference. I think, because I'm now 36 and not 29 or whenever it was when I started my other business, I'm a bit longer in the tooth and a little bit battle-hardened.
Well, age doesn't really matter though, mate. I mean, it's
no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. But
I have people at 60, 70 and, you know, that they're going, well, I'm going to sell my business now and retire and live happy. And they haven't built a business that is worth anything because it's basically they've built themselves a busy job.
Correct. But the one thing you can't ever speed up is experience. You can't have 10 years experience in 2 years, you know, and exactly. it's just, you learn so much, you see things and then you go, I remember that. And if you've got a decent sort of way of sort of, you know, if you look back at evolution, a fight and flight response is like, you do things in your career and it's like, oh shit, that was really good, I'll do that again. Or you do things that are really bad and you're like, I'm not ever going to do that again. And if you ever get a second bite at the cherry,
growing, if you're that person that's been in business 1 year 30 times, and you've just been rocking up to your office and I'm sitting in the four walls with you and you know the operations manager and a few of your workshop team or anything like that, you could have a 10-person business within the first year and then have a 10-person business within the next 30 years. That isn't exactly experience if you've not been growing and putting yourself out there. The reason that you're doing this new business now is going to allow you to have new things, right? New opportunities to grow.
Question for you. I know this is turning the table slightly. Why do you think that happens? Why do you think you have the 30 businesses for 1 year?
I think that people fall into the comfort zone. They start a business wanting to have big things happen in life. And then they fall into the day-to-day of fighting fires, just handling the next piece of shit that's in front of them, feeling busy, but just feeling busy, like the hustle mentality, mate. Climbing that ladder and hustling physically doesn't mean that the ladder's up the right wall. It feels busy in the moment. But when you get to the top of the wall, which could be 10 years, 20, 30 years away, and you get to the top of it and you look around and you go, shit, that was a hard journey. I've put a lot of graft in.
Yeah.
I've put the ladder up the wrong wall from the start.
it's interesting, isn't it? Because that's an interesting answer, because I've seen it as well. And people, it's almost like they're obsessed with starting a business without even understanding what problem they're trying to solve to start with. You know, what are you starting that hasn't already been done before, or how is it different to what's been done before? You know, it's. And I'm not saying you can't, you can't improve on current concepts, because you absolutely can. But you know, I always see people that are just, I'm going to start this business, and then when I'm naturally inquisitive, right, and they think I'm being a prick, but I'm not. I'm like, okay, well, why would people buy that, or what currently exists, or how is that different to X? They start flapping and getting angry at me because I'm trying to question their idea. I'm not. I'm just giving you what any sensible person would. Yeah, I'm just interested. So that's the one angle. So I think some people just start a business because they think that's a cool thing to do, or that's what they want to do, right? Without thinking through what they're actually doing.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
I would say ego in a bad way. It satisfies the life goal of one day I want to be my own boss.
I'm a founder. Great.
Yeah, founder, but founder on 30 grand a year, or an employee on 50 grand a year. Mate, I've had some people in coaching clients that I've gone, just go and get yourself a high paid job.
Yeah.
You're not seeing your kids on the weekend. You're spending 70 hours. You're wearing the badge of honor, and you're still worse off than when you actually had a job. So scrap this entrepreneur bollocks and just go and look after your goals that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And then the flip side of that is I've also spoken to people that say the classic, I want to work for myself. Okay, great. Great. Because they somehow think that gives them more like time. Actually, it's the opposite.
Good luck.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm on beck and call to every customer I currently work with. If a customer wants a meeting at 7 a.m., I'm having the bloody meeting because it's a customer. And if I work for a company, I'd never accept an Outlook invite at 7 a.m. in the morning. I'd be like, no, I start at 9, mate. Do you know what I mean? And that's the difference. I think there's this warped logic of somehow working for yourself means you can go to the pub at 2 o'clock if you want.
Yeah. Look, mate,
well, yeah, you can, but where's that going to get you?
It's life by design, right? So, yes, you're right. And you definitely 100% have to put in the hours in to do that. But one of my businesses now is approaching 10 million, right?
Nice.
I turn up to it for probably a couple of hours a week. Now, if I was the person who's having to do every call in that business, every customer call, every management meeting, every invoice, every HR issue, I would have to have about 500 hours in my week. It's not possible. So you're only limited to 24, right?
You've earned that privilege, haven't you?
Well, you've got to go through the steps of the dance. I mean, that ain't going to, that hasn't been easy. I've had to go through the journey of hiring people, promoting people, the ups and downs.
Delegation's the hardest thing because it's your baby.
Absolutely. And delegating to some people that I trust that will look after the customers. And when I go in the office, mate, and that phone's ringing, and I'm like, no, I'm only here for one day, someone answered the fucking phone. As soon as I pick that phone up, Dan, game over. I have now undermined the person who's the manager or the employee that is loving their job and loving what they do. As soon as I pick it up, it's like, now that's Lewis's problem. It makes them feel like shit, the employee. It makes the customer feel happy that they're now speaking to the owner. And guess what guess what that customer's going to do every time now? Speak to the owner.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's their dopamine hit. You know, that's the thing. It's so important, I think, for people that are starting out on an entrepreneurial journey to understand that what you've just described is a byproduct of doing well, right? That is almost what success looks like. Whereas the bits they never see or no one ever talks about is the shit I'm doing now. You know, all hours God sends, taking calls at 7 a.m., working for 2 or 3 customers to, do a bit of contracting, build a business, do this, do that. And that's the bit that isn't sexy and no one talks about it. And that is where you lose this 80% of people.
100%. Well, look, I spoke to a student the other day at business school, and I love what the students do. It's different to our MBAs that we spoke about now. It's not classroom anymore. It's more like teamwork of growing.
In industry,
They have to grow a business to pass their course. Brilliant.
Nice.
They're doing it. And he said to me, he says, Lewis, what does a business look like when you're at, when you're doing 10, 100 million? And I went, it's exactly the same as today, just bigger problems. And he says, well, I'm doing a lot of work for my university and I've got to do this and I've got to set up a business and it's just a lot of stress. And I went, do you enjoy it? He went, I don't really know. And I went, well, quit now then.
Yeah, I agree.
Because even though I've just said I turn up to one of the businesses 1 hour, there's 12 of those businesses, and I'm up at 4 a.m. working on the one that's the next constraint that needs the most help. The days are long, mate, and it doesn't end. Whether you're hustling around in one business or hustling on 12 businesses, enjoy the journey.
Yeah, you've got to, and I think it's not worth getting out of bed for if you don't enjoy it. It genuinely isn't. You might as well do something else. And I think I heard, I can't remember who said it. It was relating to Elon Musk. I want to say it was his wife or someone that said it, but it was like Elon Musk's greatest strength. Oh yeah, well,
he treats his wives like his businesses, doesn't he?
It might not have been. Anyway, the quote was something around Elon Musk's greatest strength is his definition of stress is totally different to everyone else's. He can basically deal with if in the normal human being, that level of stress he would deal with running all this stuff, right, would just make someone literally stop or worse.
Yeah.
You know, they reckon his biggest difference was what he perceives as stressful is so much higher than everyone else. And it's interesting you mention stress because it does get stressful. It does get times where you think, this is not worth it, mate. Like, just forget it. I'll go and get a 6-figure salary job and I'll be sound. I'll pay a load of tax, but I'll still be sound. Do you know what I mean? It's that stress, and I don't cope with it very well. I have different things, but it's being able to step away and just do something that takes your mind off it. Go to the gym or do something. Do something that just allows you to just de-stress a little bit. Come back in the next day because it's not. Mine and James's, and I'll speak for myself, not James, because he's not on the podcast. Our worst thing was if we were in a bad mood, it set the tone for the day in the office. Because I'm a big office goer, I go to the office. Our office is in a WeWork in the Village Hotel in Dudley, but I'm still in the office or on the road. Which one or the other. And it sets a bad tone if the owners or the people that people are looking up to aren't in the right frame of mind for the day. And most of that is stress that causes that. It's never someone's pissed you off. It's never Ben's pissed me off. It's just something has annoyed me and I'm stressed about it. And it's a big tip for anyone that's starting a business. If you feel stressed, don't quit. Don't just take a step away. Don't respond to an email immediately if you're pissed off either. It's just little things like that. Just give yourself 5 minutes to take a breath because stress gets you. Stress is the thing that gets you.
Very important lesson. And it's interesting about your understanding of how you deal with it, because it's not just that. I mean, you imagine what boardroom meetings look like. You've been in them as well, and people start to fire up because they don't agree, and that's what the meeting's there for. But as soon as you lose your shit, there's a good book on this, by the way, called The Chimp Paradox. As soon as you let the chimp out the box, you'll be ready. As soon as you let the chimp out the box, then it's game over. Put the chimp back in the box. Whether that looks like taking 5 minutes, whether it means just go and wash your hands in the bathroom and feel the nice cold running water or hot water under your hands. Things like that can be coping mechanisms, pal, because your state is big. And you might set up in a good state one minute, and then states we can't affect. Well, we can. There's things that we can do. There's an area of my studies that I did in the research, put the academic hat on, because you're from that world as well, is in psychological capital. The capacity to be able to psychologically keep on track and manage your state more often. There are things you can do, like what you just mentioned there with the coping mechanisms. But we have to embrace state and understand that even though we might have made a great hire, if that person right now is not behaving the way they should in the business, then seek first to understand before being understood, right? For all you know, they could have just lost a parent or something could be drastic in the world.
Well, and I've got a real life story about that actually. So it's really, it's really bizarre. It's like you know me, because you keep using the example about the doctor.
It's real, though, mate. I mean, this is story after story of real entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah, and you use the example of your metaphor of the doctor on the beach about the mole on the leg. Well, last year I had stage 2 melanoma. It was a mole on my leg, and literally, so when before I started my business last summer, I was going through that. I had an operation. I had it removed.
It seems really weird that I've mentioned this now, because I didn't do any background check to find out.
No, it's absolutely mad. Like, so I had a lymph node biopsy, which was, touch wood, all clear. I had the tumor removed out of my leg, etc., etc. But it goes back to that, and I was still working at the time. The only thing that stopped me working is I had an operation on my leg and I couldn't walk. But the I thought I got through it okay because of my autism. Genuinely, I couldn't control it, control the controllables. I can't control whether I live or die. If I've got cancer, I'm either going to live or die. It's as simple as that in my head. And I can't control that. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a cancer doctor. So for me, it was about trying to not let that stress impact in my day-to-day life. Now, that's easier said than done because, it is still there. And, even though I see things black and white, it does get you now and again. And I think what, and it sounds really harsh, but sometimes I was using it. I was like, when people weren't being, in my head, perception again, not good enough or not working as hard as me, I just used to lose my shit because I was like, I'm here, I've got cancer, I'm working, I'm doing this, and this, and you literally are being a loser or you're being useless. And I'm like, that for me is the bit I really struggled with, is not understanding why people weren't as disciplined or as hardworking as, or putting the effort in as I was at the time. And that really, really frustrated me. And I think what you said there about the chimp paradox is so important, because if you're looking at productivity, it doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't get you anywhere ranting and raving. It's good, it feels good, but it doesn't get you anywhere. And I think that's a big learn for me going through that cancer experience is, don't let it get to you in that sense. Just understand people are different and there's this sort of stuff. It's not about pandering to people, it's just understanding that and moving forward with yourself.
So there's like a capacity thing here, isn't there? Like a common theme. And there's a lady, I speak about her quite often on the podcast. There's a lady, Barbara Fredrickson, professor, and she talks about like the brain's capacity, broaden and build theory, what her theory is. The more that you experience, the broader your horizons and the more your brain builds on this stuff. So it can be things like, oh, I've got a fear of public speaking. You narrow it all down, and there'll be a little thing that comes up into the brain, like you said about the fight or flight. There'll be a little thing in the brain that you have to train like a muscle over and over again as an entrepreneur, and that could be something like keep attending meetings even if you don't want to, or keep showing up at 4 a.m. or I don't like this cold shower bollocks. I mean, how does that correlate into real, business information? But by doing things that put your body under stress more often, your stress elastic band gets more stronger and stronger and stronger. So when little bits of shit like this happens in your business world, you can deal with it. So if you've got a fear of public speaking, go and do something else that's even more scary. Like, okay, people fear public speaking more than they do death. So go and do something that might kill you, like a bungee jump or a skydive. It will stretch your capacity to deal with stress.
Well, and public speaking is an interesting one, given my sort of, I call it difference or weirdness, as I like to use it. There is obviously an official term for it, but the public speaking to me it is terrifying. Like, but I embrace it, but I only embrace it in a work situation. And that sounds really weird, but I see it as an act. It's all an act. This is an act. It's me. It's my job.
That's your coping mechanism, mate. That's what you do.
Whereas if you asked me to go up into a bar and sing karaoke or just talk in front of a pub, I wouldn't. No chance.
Same.
I sit there. I talk to my mate. Leave me alone. Do you know what I mean? But in work, it's like it's different because it's work and it's an act. It's not real to me. It's just my job.
It's a good way to think, isn't it? It's to go before and act as if. Now, does that mean that you're faking it? I've had that before. So what, you just fake it then, Lewis? I'm like, well, it's easy for someone to say who's not doing it. But I'll get it. You get it when you're experiencing that. So putting yourself in those situations. I mean, you've had cancer. What sort of stressful situation did you go through there? So to go to a stressful meeting or a public speaking thing, it's just like, I've had this to a lot of clients, Dan. Yeah, it's stressful.
The biggest frustration.
Now, worse, right?
The biggest frustration with me with the cancer, it's just the amount of it's the inconvenience. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but at that time, I was like, it's so inconvenient for me because I'm trying to do my work. I'm trying to build. I live for work. I love my job. I love what I do. I love the industry and all that sort of stuff. And it sounds ridiculous, but it was the biggest crippling stressor to me was it was getting in the way of what I was doing. And now my friends and family around me are like, you are like, what is going on? They were more affected than me because it was a serious bloody situation. Do you know what I mean? But I'd compartmentalized it totally. I was just like, that is what it is. It will be what it will be. But I think from a a learning perspective, you just become, you just become a different person. You just become a bit more resilient and a bit more, in my case, less horrible for some people that are not doing what I thought they should be doing. But it just, you're right. It's that stretchiness, right? The brain is a muscle, isn't it? It's like a muscle. It learns and it builds and you strengthen your mental power and mental whatever it is. And I think if anyone is on the call with about anything that's neurodivergent and all that, the thing I would say is, and I only recently went through this process about 2 years ago, is a lot of neurodivergent things are, understanding of them. Now I understand it more. I understand why I'm a bit different to other people, or why I'm, X, Y, and Z. I think it allows you to try and not control it, but at least understand it, so you can understand where it works. And it allows me just to go, yeah, this is me. I might be a bit weird at times, but I'm not being an idiot. Trust me, it's just how I am. Like I physically can't help it sometimes. So, I think it goes back to what you're saying about experience and learning from everything. Everything is a learning step. As long as you do something with it historically, if you learn and then forget, then it's like, oh, great.
But it's interesting you say about like we see a little bit weird, because I think that is also an entrepreneur trait as well. I mean,
maybe
if we go and talk to, I struggle to have conversations now that hold my attention very long with people like family members and stuff like that at barbecues and things. And
I just wouldn't go.
I'll be sat up the corner talking to the same person all night, because that'll be somebody who's inclined like me that wants to talk about business. And then like my wife, I'll go, "You talking about business again? Can you not talk about work?" But she used to. She doesn't now. Because she knows it's my interest, like talking about cars. I love cars. I love business. I've got to be honest, really unpopular opinion, I don't really know much about football. I'll watch it if I'm having a beer with my friends and stuff like that. But I stopped drinking for a while. I stopped watching football and things. It didn't really bother me that much. But now I'll just talk about business the whole time. Does that mean I'm working? No, I'm just doing the things that I love. So
that's your interest, isn't it?
Well, you're a bit weird, Lewis. We talk about his business and stuff like that. I'm like, well, so what then? Maybe I am weird, but doing all right.
I say this to my mates all the time, and they honestly, some of them look at me like I'm an absolute like alien or something. But I'm like, I don't care. Like Love Island, right? Did you watch? I don't care. Like it doesn't enhance my life. There's nothing in that program that's going to make me. It's no addition. I'd rather watch a documentary about air crash investigation. At least I know then when I'm on a plane what to look out for if I'm going to crash. Do you know what I mean? Like it's mad stuff like that. I just, and again, it's probably because I'm slightly different. Is I don't, if it's not relevant, it's not worth my time. Like it's really weird. It's like I don't, and that sounds like arrogance. It's not arrogance. It's just how my brain interprets it. I just can't.
Exactly.
Like you say, I literally do what you just said. If I either don't go to family occasions are the worst, because there's loads of this small talk that makes me. I just can't. I get really scared, and I don't know what to say. I'm like, yeah, okay. Oh, you're doing well. You're doing this. I'm like, well, yeah, it's all right. It's like I don't know how to deal with that social interaction. Whereas when it comes to talking about business, I'll talk to you for 2 hours about that. That's fine.
Well, yeah, we this is what we had half an hour together. We've just by saying hi before the podcast,
Yeah.
But this is the point now to bring it all back to the second time founder thing and what you do differently the second time. I asked the question about who would you build with, and I think it's really important that you've been through that first founder experience to the second one, now knowing that you know your strengths, your new unique way your brain works and your angle on the world, that you can choose your boardroom table metabolic boardroom members, your partners, of who you want to go into business with, who you want to hire. And there's not just like the logical sense to it. It's like, I always go marketing, sales, operations, finance. Who do we need in those 4 seats to make the perfect recipe for this business? If it's going to be a 100 million business, we need to think bigger. But let's have those 4 people as a foundation. But then there's the psychological side to it as well. It's like, who do I know that I'm going to have a good relationship with moving forward in this new venture?
No, I agree. It's the, I suppose it can make or break it, can't it? In terms of who you do it with and what you do it, and it's about having that. I suppose it's a little bit like dating. It's about just sounding them out, getting to know the person, getting to know your. Don't just go with people who agree with you or whatever. You've got to have, like you just said, those seats at the table. They complement usually they're complementary skill sets, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, if you think of disc profiles and stuff like that, it's
Yeah.
usually your salesperson's different to your accounting person on a profile or a psychological profile. So I think that's important. And I mean, this is not scientific in its slightest, right? But it's you just get it. You just know when you've had that conversation, and you know because it's not a friendly conversation. It's not because you all get along and high five each other. It's because you've challenged each other and you've had a great chat, and your idea or your business idea is still robust after that conversation. You know, if a business idea maintains after a conversation like that, you're probably onto something useful.